Hello everyone, how you doing? And welcome back to Skye and Evan in the morning. How you doing, Evan?
I'm doing great.
Good. And today we're gonna be talking about Joker for Folie, Deux, um,
Yes,
a
indeed.
movie
And
that everyone seems to hate.
we're probably going to be pretty like against the grain and more in favor than damn near everybody because both of us like took away something from this movie,
Yeah.
and you just straight up loved it.
Yeah,
Like
I genuinely
you have the
did
high.
enjoy the movie. The ending, not the best. I will concede on that, but I genuinely did enjoy the movie.
Damn. And then double featured with Nosferatu, which I'm guessing people in the future are gonna just assume we were talking about the Eggers one, but no, we
No.
we watched the 1922
Yeah, the
movie.
Eggers one
So
hasn't come out yet. We're just gonna talk about the 1922 Nosferatu at the same time as we talk about Joker Folie de obviously the the best double
I,
feature. You could not find two less similar movies.
no, they're different. I I was looking at my own letterbox as well as yours, and I think this is up there with the oldest movies that I've ever seen. Because I mean, like you get a little bit in a rough territory when you go to like George Méliès's movies, because like
Mhm.
they're incredibly short, but they're still like they were the standard of like what a film was. Like this, but Nosferatu is like a proper like hour-long movie. It feels like a movie even though it's like silent, but I think the other one is called like Nanook of the North. It's a documentary I watched for like a documentary
Oh,
class.
I
So
watched that too for a
that
documentary class.
yes,
Yeah.
I think ironically that's the one. You've got one movie that's older that I think was made in like 1912 or something. I forgot the title, but other than Nanook of the North, which actually came out the same year, this is the oldest movie I've seen,
Yeah.
1922.
Oh shit, you just reminded me that I watched that in a documentary class. I've dropped out of college since then, but I have indeed watched that. Man, unlocked a memory here. Yeah.
That was an interesting movie. It was just I think it was about like Inuits or something like that. Just it was like this little family that just kind of was living in the Arctic and like
Yeah.
ate seals or something. It's just,
Yeah, it's like
about their life.
they're natural to the Arctic and yeah. It's just
Yeah,
kind
I
of
forget
telling
like
their story and it's kind of just like scripted because they just kind of shot it and it was like, okay, let's make a movie out of this. It's really
yeah,
weird and a little racist,
pure
but you would expect that from a 1922 movie.
yeah, purest documentary, but interesting stuff.
Mm.
But Nosferatu was like it's interesting because Robert Eggers' movie is clearly going to go like full out like gothic horror and play into like the English setting and all that, and they I wouldn't exactly call it a horror movie. It's not like particularly
Kind
scary when
of.
you
I mean, I
watch it,
wouldn't
and it
call it
I don't
scary, but I
even.
would call it a horror movie because that's kind of the thing. Because as I
Eh,
was watching it, I was thinking, man, this is so unoriginal. I've seen this movie a million times, but I think this is the first time they did this. Like, sometimes that happens when I watch like the the movie that inspired everything. I always mention Ocean's 11 when I say that. It's like that's the movie that started that entire genre. And
yeah, the
I just
classic
had to
heist starter.
yeah, and I just had to keep reminding me, like, no, this is the first time they did this. And I noticed so many like horror cliches in this movie where I was just like, oh yeah, I've seen this a million times in horror movies. This is where it came from, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's we were talking about it before we got in the we started recording, but it's basically the type of film that you watch for its contribution to history rather than it being like a great film on its own. And you can tell that this movie inspired like the entire horror genre because I just kept identifying like, oh, this is where this originated, like all the time, like these types of scenes. But the film on its own,
Yeah,
the
the
story is a little messy.
yeah, the big one that I loved was the shot of Dracula like rising while he's like standing straight up. It's that
Yes, that was
everyone
my
does that
favorite
now, like
shot.
the vertical, even like what is it? The Nightmare Before Christmas did that with Jack in the opening. So it's just a classic cliche, and that was definitely the first time that was done,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh
it was
yeah,
just
I
awesome to see
absolutely
that. And
love that shot. It was really cool. And just before that, they had a pretty cool shot where he where he kind of just appeared sitting on the coffin and he disappeared because that one guy was hallucinating. It was like not the greatest effect because it was just like overlaid, and the two overlays were like really blended all that well together with the visual. But I thought that was kind of a neat idea for a shot for
Yeah. Oh, and
1922.
they pulled the like disappearing act thing where they like you said, like just 2 frames and like essentially make a fade. It looks messier than it does in a modern context, but like they pull magic tricks and stuff like that, and they genuinely do innovate. So
Yeah, there's the
it,
shot where he opens the doors of the house he bought near the end of the movie. With his mind, he just has his arms out. It's kind of funny because they just cut to two different shots of the door being more open. It's just like some frames of this door being more open that they cut to. It's like, yeah, that's probably
he's
the only way you
levitating it
can do.
open.
Yeah, it's the only way you can do this in 1922. But I thought it was nice. It had its charm. I thought it was a very charming movie because it's just like, yeah, I see where like why this movie is so influential. It for the time it probably was like really really cool. Though the
Well, I
way
always
he's just kind of defeated by like, oh yeah, the sun. He forgot about the sun. It was kind of okay. Like you kind of just need the
yeah,
movie to
and the
end. You didn't know where
weird
to do.
like a girl needs to like offer herself up to like that's the only way to stop it, and then that doesn't even really happen in the end.
Yeah, I
He
was
just kind of
thinking
like
like,
dies in the
did
sun. It's
she
like,
give
oh.
him her blood, and that's why he forgot that the sun would kill him? Was that
What
the idea?
well, one of the other weird things is that like they say that like the sun can hurt it or that it can only come out at night, but clearly they just shot all the
Oh
scenes
yeah,
during the
no,
day, even the
the
stuff that's
night
like on the ship.
scenes
And
are hilarious. It is clearly just during the
yeah.
day with a blow filter, which we say about modern movies too. So, but that
But it's
was
just
like the
more
most
apparent here, like
egregious.
you
Yeah, it was like the
can
most
totally
egregious case
tell.
of day for night I've ever seen. So yeah.
Yeah. It's understandable, like, they could only do so much 100 years ago, but
And
yeah.
yeah, like literally shooting at night would probably have been really hard. So
I just they didn't have, like, half the lighting they needed. I'm not even sure what, like, the exposure of lenses or even if they used lenses, I'd have to look up, like, what type of camera was actually used, but I'm guessing, like, dark was just the death of it.
yeah, it was really funny. There's a
But
moment where like it's lit, so like the entire screen's like yellow, and because it's like an inside shot and there's a candle, uh, a candle lit by the window, and then the there's some wind that comes through the window and blows the candle out, and they just cut from yellow filter to blue filter. It's like, oh, it's dark now. That was one that really I thought was hilarious.
I do love how, like, intrinsically goofy a lot of the elements of the Dracula story are, because 'cause
Hmm.
I've seen the original one from the '30s, and, like, Dracula being sold a house is usually the catalyst for the story, and it's just so funny, the idea of someone going to, like, a Transylvania mansion and selling, like, this supposed, like, count and, like, affluent person, like, a little suburban house, and then they just come to and, like, wreak havoc and drink everyone's blood. Like, Dracula has a funny premise, and
Yeah.
this movie leans into it a lot, and it's also just crazy because we were talking about the cliches are one thing, but it's all the different ideas that have come from this movie. Because like Renfield came out recently with Nick Cage. I haven't seen that yet, and then there's Last Voyage of I think the Dementor that or Demeter. I don't know how to say it, but it's based around the idea of like Dracula being smuggled in by the coffins on the ship, and then all the crew dies. Like people have pointed out how weird of a plot that is for that movie, and like that they should be safe during the day and stuff like that. But it's funny to see movies come out like that are just completely based on what happens in this movie. It's
Yeah, I
like,
mean even Midnight Mass, the the way that
yeah,
Father Paul brought the vampire to the island was by boat. It was the exact same thing. Taking it out at night so it would fly over to him. Like I was just like, "Oh yeah, the boat thing. That's in Midnight Mass." It's like it
Yeah, and the
had a huge
design
effect.
as well
Oh
is
yeah.
very Nosferatu-esque. I mean, tons of people have done that, and it's not like a
I mean, yeah, it's
super unique
basically
design for a
become what a
demon.
vampire looks like. Um, it's just that visual, like the the kind of creepy, long nails, bald man with wings has become that the actual like design for vampires. We're trying to go for like more accurate vampires, I guess, rather than like Twilight vampires.
Yeah. Which I think a lot of people, it's funny that we're going that road. Like people want to make vampires like a lot scarier, like go back to the purest. Even Robert Eggers has said that about his Nosferatu. He's like, I want vampires to be scary again. Like they're not going to be like, sexualized at all. It's just going to be pure horror. It's like, okay, dude.
I
Okay.
am kind of excited for that though. Robert Eggers, I love his films,
Oh
so.
yeah. It does look like they're going in a very different direction from that because it looks like a female lead is essentially the main character, and that it's almost more like a possession movie than like a vampire. Like something's going on with all those scenes and all the weird
But it kind of
faces
makes
she's
sense.
making.
They
Some sort of
had the
possession.
Ellen in the original movie was kind of supposed to be play a big part, like because even the synopsis of the movie is like Nosferatu takes a liking to her, but it's not really told
Yeah,
all that well. If you're adapting the story, you kind of want to make her kind of more the main character. I think that's interesting.
well, funnily enough, I found her to have the best performance, the actress that plays his wife. Like, I
Mm.
love how expressive she is with the eyes. Like, she
Oh yeah.
goes super wide-eyed and, like, even in scenes where she isn't scared, there's something, like, that you can see that's, like, looks kinda distant, and I liked her performance, and I like that, like, she tries to take charge towards the end, but it's for the most part, it's about, Dracula and oh, man,
Hutter.
what's the main character's name?
Hutter.
It's not Renfield.
Hutter.
Hutter?
Hutter. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hutter. Which, by the way, reminds me the font they used for the the title cards, all the writing
Yeah.
was not great. I kept having to like pause because like, wait, what letter is this?
Well, I'm curious if it was, like, literally sheets that they, like, moved up in front of the camera, or if that was, like, an effect. Because I know titles had, like, graphic effects, like, back in the day, but it the way the font was put together and the way it scrolled, I was like, "Did they literally just put a sheet in front of the camera?" I'm like, "They might have."
Yeah, that may
It might
have
have
been
been
how
that
they did it back
old-fashioned.
then. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some sort of, like, documentary detailing, like, how this film was made. Because
There's probably a really
God
good
knows they
YouTube
don't.
video about it.
I mean, God knows they didn't have, like, footage from anybody on set because, like, you just didn't have cameras. Like, it's so
Yeah.
much easier to make documentaries because of how much, like,
Yeah, people just have their
footage there is
phones. You can
now.
just record
Yeah,
the behind the
they're
scenes of the
viable
movie.
in modern documentaries. People just use those and
Yeah.
just throw them in there. They make the documentary for them.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, interesting movie. It's worth watching if you're, a cinephile, I guess. It is an
yeah,
important movie in cinema history, but it's not really a great movie on its own, I guess.
yeah, it's a little frustrating because, like, I've always said this about The Godfather. Like, when you watch it, you're like, yeah, I get why people say that's the greatest movie of all time. Like, that's really, really good stuff. And, like, there's just a good argument. And when you watch it, you're like, yeah, that's very reasonable to be like, this is the best movie of all time. I don't think that about Citizen Kane. And I think
Really?
people are pretending. I think people are, like, faking it when they say they do, because it is a little bit dated, and
It
it's
is a
very
little dated,
theatrical.
yeah,
And
but I love Citizen
it
Kane. Wow.
well, yeah, it's a great movie, but when the more you wind back the clock, the less that movies really are, like, great, and they're more, like, important. And this is definitely one of those where it's not necessarily what you'd call a great movie in and of itself, but it's important, and I would recommend it to people, like, just so that they have, like, this view on movies and that they, like, enrich their filmography.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would say about this movie. I was just taken aback that you don't think Citizen Kane's all that good. I love that
I
movie.
didn't say that. I didn't say that. I like it. It's good. It's just a little bit I don't know. I need to rewatch it. It's been years. So
I watched it, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I think I need to rewatch it too. It's one of those
it's
movies that are just like
insane.
I was studying film, so I kind of had to watch it. I was like,
Well,
my
I feel like
teachers would
everyone
mention it, and it was
watches
just
it.
like, I haven't seen it.
Well, yeah, I watched The Godfather in a film class, and I literally watched that because I'm like, everyone's like, this is the most importantest film missed ever, so I'll watch it. And it's like, I didn't exactly sit down with it, like watching it and trying to appreciate it as it was as a film. Which I mean, I'm sure rewatches only make that movie better because you know what the twist is, and like you can look at the movie and like Kane's character from a different perspective. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, with Nosferatu out of the way, what did we think of Joker Folie do?
I was mid on it. I have I don't think I could give it lower than like a 5 out of 10, and I still haven't rated it on Letterboxd because like I want to rewatch it for one, and for two, it's like really hard to assign any kind of rating because it's flawed, but there's also a lot of stuff I like, and I just at the end of the day, my biggest thing is I think people are being unreasonable with it, and they're framing it as way worse and way more worthless than it really is. Because I've said to pretty much everybody that I still think it's worth theaters. Like it's still worth it, even if it's flawed.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a film worth watch. I don't know. I think it is like, I just think it's like a worthy sequel to the first movie, but I would still have preferred it not exist because I think the first movie stands on its own a lot better without any sequel. But at the same time, if there were to be a sequel, I'm pretty happy with this, other than the ending that could have been better.
We're gonna spoil everything. Joker
Oh
dies,
yeah,
so it's
important to know. Just important to know that we're gonna spoil it because it's the first time we've covered a movie that just came out. So yeah, spoiler alert.
yeah. It just happens out of nowhere, and I swear to God, it really feels like Todd Phillips apologizing. Like that's what it read when I was wondering it in the back of my head, and then when he started like knifing his own face, I was like, you're not serious, dude. You're
Yeah,
not serious. And it's like
I thought that
it,
was so
it honestly is
corny.
like, I'm sorry, guys. Okay, this isn't the Joker. Okay, I promise. All right, I'm gonna fucking have the real Joker fucking annihilate him and stab. It's like, what?
It's
For
funny because
what?
like people had that theory, right? That Arthur Fleck was just like an inspiration for the actual Joker in this universe. People had that theory when the
Well,
first movie came out, and so he kind of just made it real.
well,
But I just thought it
I
was so
like.
corny and so unnecessary.
Well, I like that theory, like that you're like, because it adds up timeline wise. You're like, maybe this Joker was just something that inspired the other Joker, and that he was just one. He was just like one of the most loyal like followers, and maybe people forgot about that Joker because he was kind of a loser, and like what he did didn't matter in the grand scheme of things, and he was forgotten, and the other Joker made more of a legacy or something like that. I I'm fine with that. The whole problem that I have with this movie and with the last movie is that the attempts to connect it to like the comic book. I'm like, these don't have all making it so that some random Joker loyalist is the one who killed Bruce's parents. It's like, what? Just that in the original movie, I didn't find the ending where they just have a Joker loyalist off Bruce's parents interesting. It just
Mm.
felt so slapped in, and they're just like, hey, by the way, the Joker is indirectly responsible for Bruce's death, and maybe that's the joke at the end that Arthur's laughing at, but they do something more with it in that movie. But in this movie, they really do just have someone repeat his words, and you're like, why did you even kill him? I'm like, I guess it
Ooh,
was
yeah.
just
I
because
I thought
of what
that,
he said at the court.
yeah, I think the idea for me is that these people looked up to him, including the actual real Joker who kills him at the end. And when he said there is no Joker, and he was just like playing pretend because he wanted to be liked and seen, but that isn't who he actually is. That left that guy disappointed because earlier in the movie, he that one guy kept looking at Joker like many times, like in admiration, like, ooh, Joker, like I like him, Arthur, he's so cool. And then at the end, he kills him. So that's kind of the impression that I got. It's like
Well,
you kind of
that's just what I
betrayed the
find
movement, and
insane.
so I'm gonna kill you for not being who we thought you
Yeah,
were.
but But there's so little of him. It's exactly what you said. It's that like he's always just looking at him in the distance, and like I would not be blown away if someone didn't realize that character was a
He
thing
was, yeah, he was
until
actually in
like
the movie before he kills Joker at the end. I genuinely wouldn't blame people.
yeah. I so I talked to you about the alternatives. I'm like, so several people have been like him getting the electric chair actually would have worked pretty
Yeah.
well because you're just
I
like
thought that's where the movie was
it,
going, to like show the
they
pointlessness
sent
of
it.
what he did. Like just
Yeah,
have him be
they
killed and
find him
sentence for
guilty,
it.
sentence him to death, and you're just like, yeah, he got caught and died for it, and that's it. It that the this is the thing about like pointlessness, or like people always did this with The Last Jedi. I love that it all comes back to that. But
Of
like
course.
anti-climaxes, people are like, that's the point. The point is that there's no point. But it's like
Well, but you
there's
can
a
still
way
have a
to do
point that there is no point with it
yes,
that is
like
told better. It's what we said. If you like, it could be the electric chair, it could be Lee killing him, and it would also fulfill the idea that there is no point to it. Like it wouldn't change it.
yeah, there's ways to execute something where someone just dies randomly in a way that doesn't feel random. That's the trick of it. Like making a death not feel arbitrary or feel like there's still something to take away. Because if he dies by the electric chair, then you're like the system basically beat him out, found him guilty, and just he got what he deserved, kind of a thing. You know,
Yeah.
there's a bit of an irony. And then if it's one of them, if it's either him like taking his own life by like suicide by copying, or you know, even purist, that connects to the defense he was using at the trial, where he was like saying that he was suicidal. And then if you have Lee do it, that connects to the dream sequence, which for some reason he thinks about when he gets stabbed, when she shoots him. I'm like,
Yeah, that
and
was
it being on
it kind of to be fair to the movie, it kind of makes sense because just like that guy who killed them, Lee was also kind of like a Joker loyalist, and so it's kind of
yeah,
like
it's
showing that the movement turned against him, and it's symbolized in his mind by Lee because she represented that
but
movement in his mind. But I still don't like that. I'm defending the
well,
movie on
and
this,
Lee
but I
is
still don't like it.
Lee's the only one that he really cares about. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't seem to think about the rest of them except just on a general level. It's like
Yeah, that's why
so
it would have been better for her to kill him, to show that he's betrayed the one
yeah.
person who he
It,
cares about and who cared about him.
yeah, there's something there. Like the guy that is the one who actually kills him. He's like, "Who the fuck are you?" I'm like, "I want to tell you a joke." It's like, "Okay, man, can you make it fast?" Like he
Yeah.
doesn't care, and then he just kills him. So worst part of the movie, like easily, it's
Yeah.
pissing people off, and my frustration with it is that like any alternative that you can think of is pretty much better than what they did, and just having him killed on the stairs just makes all the sense. They used it like it's pretty like unarguably the most iconic like location from that film. Like
Yeah.
people love those stairs. They film like videos of themselves on it. It's like they become iconic because of that movie. And they like the symbolism of him like trudging up the stairs and like it being a hard climb upwards to get to his house, and then contrasting that with him dancing down the stairs. It's like it's one of the classic just basic symbols in the original movie. And then in this movie they have him run up the stairs after he escapes to Lee, and then I'm like, it just makes perfect sense for him to get shot down. They even the end credits is even That's Life, shot down in May. Like it was right there, and then they just don't do
Yeah,
anything
and
with it.
not only
Like
that, but it's sung by Lady Gaga, because which is just like, yeah, imagine how
yeah,
perfect it would be to have that play after she kills him. But no.
they could have shot that scene anywhere. Like the stairs, they don't do anything with the stairs. That he could have just found her. Right, I guess the only reason is it's like a location that they both would have gone to.
Well, yeah, it's because
But this is what
she had bought his like apartment so that they could like start a life together there. So it makes sense that they'd be
yeah.
close to that, and he would just
Well,
run there because it's like the only place he would like think of to go to. It's like them being there is fine. It's just like you could have just done more with the location itself because of how much it means to just
yeah.
Arthur and the, like the iconography of the movie. Because if the point is pointlessness, having like that triumphant, dance down the stairs be contrasted by him just falling down like quietly and dying, it would have worked really well to like show how pointless it was, everything that Arthur did in the first movie, that it wasn't for some grand cause like people believe and like he wants people to believe, that it was for nothing. But they don't do that.
No. So let's talk a little bit about Lee, because I found her so fucking confusing. So I thought I had her figured out part of the way through the movie. I thought she was trying to get him killed.
Me
I
too.
thought that like it was like, oh, she's tricking.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought she was gonna try to have him represent himself because that was the easiest way for her to get him to get the electric chair, and she was just like playing him.
Yeah, just speed the trial up. So like that's what I thought, was that like she was trying to make it worse and make him seem worse in court so that he would be found guilty. And that the twist would be like some bullshit that she's Jared Murray's daughter or something like that. Like, that something. And it's like it turns out that she was just pretending to be a loyalist. That would be an interesting betrayal, because Arthur keeps asking her if she's real, because obviously he hallucinated the whole relationship with Zazie Beetz in the original movie.
And apparently he hallucinates relationships with women often, as is established in this movie.
I don't know. It's fine if they want to do that, but the trial itself is so weird. We'll get into that. But so I thought that through the movie, and I thought that would actually work really well, because it would be an interesting betrayal, because in the original movie he imagines the relationship with Zazie Beetz' character, and he wouldn't have imagined the relationship in this movie, but it would have been fake. It would have been something where she was tricking him and she like wanted to kill him, and it turned out like it was all false. But they don't do that. Like, apparently she really was head over heels for him, and like,
which is kind of funny considering her background. I don't know why she would be like that.
Yes,
I was
that's
kind of
another
like,
thing,
because like
that I
she
found
lies about her
confusing.
background, but like if you're just like a rich kid with like wealthy parents, like who had a good life, who studied psychology, why do you care about this random guy who murdered someone in live TV?
Yeah, none of it adds up either, because she like commits crimes. She commits arson at the asylum, but apparently she still can just drop the voluntary commitment, and then she like robs a TV store. I'm like, what? Considering that she's got like a rich family and that she's like went to grad school at the same time, she's also apparently insane, and it's all because of him.
I thought it was like, I think it's like fine, sure, like someone like her could potentially just be a little crazy, that kind of stuff happens, and I suppose you can still care about that movement even though you are one of like the problem people, I guess, because you're part of a rich family, like you're part of the system, quote unquote, and she doesn't want to be. Sometimes it happens with like rich people having activist children and stuff like that, but
sort of
but I was just like, I thought it would have been more interesting. I was just like, so she's just that, and she's like the opposite of what you'd expect, and there's no more reason to it. Like, you'd think there'd be at least like a reason that the movie gave, right? To be like, oh, this is why she cares so much about this movement, like, but there's nothing. She's just like that. She just is crazy about Joker.
Well, throwing that in, I don't understand why they did that, because they just say it. They never show her parents. They never show her like living in some big old house.
I think they say that so she has the money to buy as well the house that Arthur used to live in.
Her fake backstory of like being an arsonist and like trying to burn her own parents' house down, like that is at least some sort of a connection between them that like can serve as a catalyst for a relationship, but that apparently was a lie.
Yeah, I don't know why they made it a lie. It was so unnecessary to do that.
Well, it weakens the if my friends could see me now, like I swear that her lighting a fire in the piano, it's like, it connects, because it's like that's what she, and I was like, maybe that'll be her thing, lighting fires to like, maybe she'll like light a fire to get Arthur out of the trial or something like that, or like, you never know. But they dropped that. Apparently that wasn't true, and that wasn't a thing. And she just lit a fire there just as a distraction, and it doesn't connect. It's like, you've weakened that song and dance number because that it's fake. And that's my problem with her, is that I'm so confused on what her real motivations are and what she's doing, because there's a bunch of cutout material that people have been noting. There's like deleted scenes and like shots from the trailer that aren't in the actual movie. And because she leaves Arkham so early in the movie, Arthur and her like directly interact so infrequently that it's just hard to get a read on what her deal is.
Yeah, it's why I thought they were just making her to be like playing Arthur, because if we don't know that much about her, it makes it easier to, have us question whether or not she actually is helping Arthur. But they dropped that. She was actually just obsessed with Arthur, so
A betrayal would make more sense in that context, but
yeah, I
that's
mean,
not,
even
they don't
just
do
like
that.
structurally with the movie, it would have made more sense. But
Yeah. This is my frustration with the movie, and probably my biggest criticism is that I don't like the trial. I wish that most of the movie was in Arkham, because I think a trial is like one of the least interesting ways you could take this story. He's obviously guilty. Obviously no trial would ever. I was like hoping that they acquitted him just for shits and giggles. They bombed the place anyway. I'm like, can you just find him not guilty and just like just to surprise us? Because when they found him guilty, I'm like, yeah, a fucking corpse.
I think it kind of is interesting, just the idea that of like the insanity defense. But because it is like set in the like 80s, the knowledge of like what DID is and just the entire like psychological aspect to it is just like so like raw, that I was just like, well, like you can't really make a real point about insanity or like mental illness and with this, because the movie's set in the 80s, so it's kind of, you can't really delve all that deeply into it, because they didn't know that much back then, and they saw mental illness as like a bad thing.
Well, even then, if you wanted to do that, you could have like tried to make some sort of you could have had like the psychological aspect be at the forefront of the story, but more so it's about putting witnesses on the stand and just recounting the events of the original movie. There's so much just like this happened. It's like, I know this happened. And then you have Arthur retreating into his own mind in the music, because I liked that scene. You were talking like the Joker is your favorite song on the soundtrack, and I love that song because it seems like he's hiding in that scene, because they're talking about like the abuse that he went through as a kid,
Yeah.
and then he retreats into that song and dance. So like, I get the feeling they use a lot of the musical sequences. Some people are accusing them of being random. I think more so they do it whenever like Arthur needs a retreat, and they're not always great, especially more of the Lady Gaga songs, which again we'll get into. But it's tricky with the trial, because like there's some parts of it that work. My frustration with it is so much of of this movie is the characters just talking about the original movie, rather than like plot points that are original in this movie and stuff that Arthur's doing independently. Because for the most part, he's just sitting there in the trial and there's nothing he can do. He just sits and lets his lawyer do everything, and he's not even paying attention. Like he writes down, "Can you get Lee a better seats?" Like for his lawyer. Like that's the type of shit he's thinking about. He's not like engaged with the trial. So it's like, why should we care if even Arthur himself doesn't care? It's like, yeah.
I mean, I think that was kind of like the point, that we shouldn't care about the trial, because he kind of thinks he is gonna win, because what he did, well, he thinks that what he did was justified. Well, he doesn't think that, actually. People think that what he did was justified because he killed a bunch of bad people. Which is why I think it makes sense that he wouldn't tell people about him killing his mama till the end, because that breaks the entire thing that he killed only bad people. Like he had no reason to kill his mom.
That's the other thing I find it weird that apparently no one figured out about that. Like I always found that weird in the original movie, that he smothered his mom and just got away with it clean and no one knew. Like I get that like cameras weren't as advanced back then, and there probably would have been like security footage, but even then monitors would have still existed. It's just it's weird that they have it so that apparently no one knows about that, even after looking into him and after putting him on trial. It's
I think it could happen. Like,
Yeah,
I think it's fine-ish. I don't know. I think there is a case to be made that like something like that could happen, like in a
but
hospital bed, your mom just dies and you're just
but
like, oh, sad.
but seriously, regarding Arthur, do you think he? I think he knows that he killed because that's what he said. Like, and the psychiatrist says that like he has an understanding of right and wrong. I think he knew that he killed those guys, and that like it was. That's the thing that I find so weird about him, like saying like "There's no Joker, it's me." I'm like, I thought that was the point. That like it was as if he always had the Joker in him, and it just all it took is people beating him enough times before he like snapped and shot somebody. Like
Yeah, I mean that is
it's
what it
not
is. Even
complicated
so
how
much
the
so
Joker
that even
works.
the guy, what's it called, Gary Puddles. Yeah, Puddle.
Randall, yeah, Gary. But that scene was awesome. We'll
Yeah.
get there.
I really love it. It's like, you really want us to believe your name is Spuddles. Wait, it actually is? That actually got me laughing. But
It was a little funny for him to put on the lawyer voice.
oh,
I
it
did
wasn't
find
really
it cringe at
the
a
lawyer
point.
voice. I just kind of just thought it was funny that he was just like taken aback that his name was actually Puddles. I was like, oh shit, it actually is. Okay. But I forgot the point. I was like, oh yeah, even with Gary, he even says that like he even says to Gary like, maybe you didn't know me that well, because that's kind of like the thing that like he kind of just wants to say like, I've always been the Joker. There isn't like this other personality, which was his lawyer's defense for him.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the point of that scene and why Gary being the one that like he has to cross-examine works so well, because like Gary turns it on him when he said he's the only one who didn't make fun of him. Because that's what he said to Gary, and that's when he shuts down his entire defense, just gives up. What people think is that's like him dropping the Joker act and just like when someone turns it on him, because he was the one person that he let go. This is the thing, though. It's like it's so hard to say what Arthur thinks about himself and if he buys into the defense, because the opening animated sequence, which by the way I loved that they used like classic Looney Tunes style animation, it was pretty clever,
Yeah,
and that
I
was
know.
a well put together scene. It's weird though because it's like so you're showing like the Joker's shadow committing these crimes and him being like framed, which you're like, obviously that's the defense, like split personality. But it's like we watched the original movie, we know that wasn't a thing,
Well,
and that
yeah, but
didn't
it's just
happen.
kind
So
of
it's like,
like the thing that the lawyer and the psychologist
yeah,
wants people to believe, but it's not what actually happened, and we know that. And for a
but
part of the movie, they're trying to make us believe that that's what happened, but when it's not.
well, in Arthur,
Not
like
make us believe, but make
surely
people
Arthur
believe.
doesn't believe that,
Oh,
but
Arthur
it's like
doesn't. I don't
why?
think he ever does. Yeah.
So why show that opening if the main character doesn't even buy into it? If it's just the what their lawyers are proposing happened, because like it's the opening scene. It's like I his defense is important for the movie, but if we know it isn't true, why are they like being like, hey, this is what his lawyers think in an animated like
I don't
I
know.
don't get
I thought
why
it was
they
just
did
kind
that.
of like, this is what like people want to believe was the case to justify why someone would do
Well,
something that awful. That was kind of the idea I got
but
from it.
but surely his loyalists don't think that because they're pissed when he
Oh, no,
says there
not
is
his
no
loyalists. I
Joker.
think it's
So
just like regular people. His loyalists obviously believe that he did what he did because it was right and
well,
because he's a righteous
no
man
regular
fighting against the, you know.
well, regular people wouldn't think that. They think he's just a monster. So it's like it's what
I don't
people
think
trying to
so.
acquit him would think. It's
I don't
so
think so. I think there is a, quite often people try to like justify and
well, yeah.
find meaning behind something like that instead of just being like, oh, it was someone monstrous did something monstrous. They kind of try to find some meaning, find some reason why someone would do something like that. And so I think people generally could actually believe that, like that being the case, just so they could have like a reason for why he did all these things rather than, he was actually just evil. Because like I think even the lawyer, she actually, no, not the lawyer, the psychiatrist, I think she actually does believe he has the ID. I don't think the lawyer
yeah.
does. I think the lawyer is only using it as a defense. but I
Well,
think
she
she
was weird too. I found it really confusing to get a read on her, and I wish they developed her more. I don't think she really got a good understanding about who Arthur was. Like they don't develop them as characters and
they
have them
should have
like
had
spend
the
time
two
and
talk
recount.
more. They don't talk that much. There's like one scene where they
No.
talk one to one.
Yeah, it's like the first scene where they're recording him and then a couple of exchanges during the trial, but even those aren't that
Yeah,
substantive.
they could have built
And
up that relationship between him and the lawyer a bit more, because she obviously would have had to have built his defense for a long time. So, like, just showing a bit of that process, her getting to know Arthur better and understanding that maybe what she's doing this knowing that Arthur isn't what her defense is making him out to be, that he actually is just an evil person. But I don't know, they could have done something with that.
yeah, this is what's becoming apparent the more we talk about this is all these just missed opportunities.
Opportunities,
It's
yeah.
like the
This feels like a movie that needed a couple more drafts, because I could see like a
yes,
lot of
I
great stuff in this movie, but the more we talk about it, the more I'm just like, maybe if you tighten this up a little or you made this a little better, like there's so many ways this
well
movie could have been better, and it feels like an earlier draft of a great movie.
yeah, my older brother described it as like a feeling like a second draft. It feels like enough to work, but that like it just needed to be rewritten a couple more times and then it would have been just that extra bit solid.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest takeaway is I'm just like this it does not feel like Todd Phillips really wanted to make this movie. Like it felt like he had ideas, but he didn't have something to like tie it all together. And that's why the ending feels so sloppy because it's like it just comes across like he didn't know what else to do. So he just killed him just to finish it. And it's like I don't know what you're supposed to take away from this movie, especially with the ending, because it's like it doesn't feel like it rounds out to a point.
Yeah. Yeah, because like as you said, the kind of like the point of the movie is the pointlessness. Just like Arthur did this thing, and everyone wants to believe that it was for a reason. That either because he was, his own mind protecting him, and that was what created the killer, or it was just him fighting for the people, him being a good person, that he didn't kill people senselessly. I guess that he was he was fighting for the little guy, I guess. Um, that's what his loyalists believe. But but it was all for nothing of that. He just did it because he was angry after being beaten down all his life. He was just angry, and he didn't want to start a movement, and that was kind of
Yeah.
like the
Well,
point. Um, and
that
I
was
kind of
another thing
liked
I
that
wish.
point, like because like the first movie, he becomes the icon of the Joker accidentally. He kills those people with the clown makeup, and that's what makes the news. It's just like, oh, someone dressed as a clown killed 3 people, and that starts the movement. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna become this thing that people say I am. Like that's kind of cool to explore that. I enjoyed that aspect
Well,
of it.
well, and again, like I wish that that had been more at the forefront is like why Arthur does the things that he does. This is where like, him taking the stand could have been interesting or something like
I thought
that.
he would
Cuz
when they said like, "Oh, we're not calling any more witnesses." I thought, "Oh, they're gonna call Arthur to the stand," but no.
yeah, because the thing about it is interesting to think about Arthur cuz what they say is true. He seems to have like a good sense of what right and wrong is and he does not seem insane or like distant and like that he doesn't have control over his own actions, but I'm like, why does he do what he does in the original movie? It's like it's out of anger basically.
Yeah.
Anger and like perceived
I mean, he
self-defense.
even
Like
says it to Murray
even
that, people like me, they're beaten down and sometimes we're just gonna werewolf and go wild.
Arthur, like he describes the people at the subway as like they were mean to him. They were awful, like people, and that's why he kills the people he does in the first movie. He like in his mind, he's fighting back against people that hurt him,
Yeah.
basically. And that is an interesting thing to explore of like why exactly did Arthur actually do what he did, and having him take the stand is a place you could explore that. But the entire trial is about the witnesses that like and the people that he affected, basically, which that could be interesting. but I don't think they take the interesting route with either. I don't think the people he explored, other than Gary, which is the scene that everyone praises, like works as well as like if you had just focused on why he actually did what he did.
I kind of just enjoy the idea of the trial, just like seeing Joker be like trying to defend himself. Not really defend himself. He's just being like, "What I did was right, so fuck all of you." Like I think that is cool, and then him just being like, "No, you know what? Actually, I didn't do it for the thing these people think I did." Like him finally like having to drop the facade. I kind of like that. It's just being like, I'm not
But
what I pretended to be. I just wanted to be liked and be seen. Like he even said, I was gonna drop an angry rant right now, but because that's what they want. But I can't do this anymore. It's just like being tired of pretending to be this someone else. Because I kind of like the idea that like Arthur Fleck is still nobody after the two movies, because who everyone cares about is the Joker. Like they care about the Joker version of him. Like that's why I even like that Lee left him. She was just like, she fell in love with the Joker, whereas he was just Arthur Fleck. The Joker was never like a real thing. That person who stood up for against the bullies.
Well, and that's the other thing about the Joker shadow from the opening scene that maybe they were going for, and people have said that about the movie. Like this movie is almost about like the shadow of the Joker like haunting Arthur, and that he realizes he isn't the Joker and that the Joker is like too big for him, if you will. But it's just how they handle that, and how, because I think for most of this movie he doesn't act like the Joker. He just acts like Arthur, and it doesn't feel like he's struggling with like who he is. It doesn't feel like they make it into like a split personality thing.
It's not a split personality, like literally. Like he doesn't have the idea actually. It's just, but you can tell that he's always putting on a performance. Like that's why I even like that he writes on his little journal like what he's gonna say. Like I have no argument. That's all, folks. Like you saw that just before he said it, he had written it down on his journal. So you're just like, see, like it's all a performance to him. Joker is a performance, and that's like quite clear throughout the movie. And like the one moment where he drops the act, he thinks that like Lee is still gonna like love him because he thought that she could see the real him, but she actually didn't. She also just fell in love with the Joker instead of just falling in love with Arthur. Like I thought that was like pretty well done in the movie. Just like the general idea of like Arthur pretending to be the Joker when he's just like some loser guy who everyone like just accidentally put all this baggage onto him of like what he represents when he's actually not that. I thought that was done quite well.
Yeah, I think it's fairly well handled in terms of like it being something that people put on him rather than something that he decided for himself. I mean, you even get that in the oneer with at the end him like running. It was in the trailers, but him like running away from like other Jokers, other people that like have the getup, whereas he's like all disheveled because of the bomb. It's like a sense of him like running away from the Joker is kind of what colors this movie. But this is why Lee is probably my biggest frustration. She's confusing as a character in and of herself, and the bigger problem is I don't think the movie focuses on them. I think the most meaningful scene they have is their first scene where they talk, and then If My Friends Could See Me Now.
Yeah.
After that,
I would agree with that. I was kind of disappointed because when I left the movie, I was like, I thought this was going to be like a Joker and Harley movie, but it's just a Joker movie and Harley's also there.
She's just after she leaves, she's just at
it's also
the
why
trial
like just like the general like title of the movie annoys me because it's Folie and Deux. It's not that. It's Joker is the one who does all the madness, and she's just like around him. Like the movie's about the Joker. If this was just like called Joker 2 and they didn't make such a big deal about Harley, then sure, but it annoyed me, just like that general idea of being like, oh, see, it's about the two of them. They're both gonna get into some hijinks, but it's not that. It's definitely not that.
Yeah, I wish that it was about the two of them, but it really isn't, and it's a wasted opportunity. Because that's my biggest thing is it's just like so for one, how the hell could Lee have like gotten out of Arkham after she like burned part of the place down and was like
I
on
guess
like
people
climbing
just
the
wouldn't
fence
have
with
known that it
Arthur?
was her that did it. I think people just didn't know it was her, and
Well,
that's how she got out.
what I could buy that back in like 83 or whatever this movie takes place
Yeah.
in, but still like she did do the exact same thing that Arthur did, like trying to get out near the fence and
Well, to be
seemingly
yeah, but to be
escaping.
fair, if she's the
But
only, if she's like, she admitted herself, she's just doing that for fun. Like, I gotta understand, just like,
yeah, but still, like you can't commit crimes and do things that are like out of line with the facility. Like it's something that I could potentially see it happening, but my frustration's the same either way. She leaves the asylum and then that because that was when she was there, that was when the movie was peak.
oh
I'm
yeah, I
like,
would agree with that. The
like
best part of the movie is at
yeah,
the
so
asylum.
close to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but La La Land. But then that stops being what it is because the rest of the movie's the trial, and like it was best when they could do more like song and dance sequences that were directly related to the plot, but that just stops being a thing early on when she leaves, and then
Yeah, the
it's
music is all in Arthur's head from then on.
yeah. And by the way, the music, like I swear, Build a Mountain. I hate that song. It's not it is not at the high of the charts either. Like it does not look like it's popular just on the album in general. It's such a Lady Gaga lyric. Like they never explain what it means in the movie either.
Oh yeah,
It's
that
just
that was
something
kind
that
of
she
something that
says. It's
annoyed me because I thought like you can kind of get the general idea, but I thought they would explain it and it would be something like sinister, kind of something like that. You like it seems like something nice that she meant, but it actually is something like awful, like build the mountain. It's so vague that it could mean anything. I thought, ooh, she's gonna
yeah.
have meant something that's like super creepy, and it's gonna show how insane she also is. But they just never explain it, so I was kind of like disappointed.
Yeah, and it just you arrive at that conclusion where you're like, this is a song lyric. It sounds cool and it makes for a good song title, but it's like it doesn't connect to anything in the actual movie. And that's what my frustration with a lot of those, because the Joker, I like that because it's the song, the point of the song, he even says it like the Joker is me. It's him trying to embrace like the Joker persona fully, even though it's all like in his mind. But the scenes at Arkham, they felt in line with like classic song and dance sequences. I love for once in my life because it's ironic that like he's just sitting in an insane asylum, and it actually kind of makes sense for no one to stop him and for everyone to just be watching the show. Like people always say that in musicals, like why is everyone just dancing and like singing in unison? I'm like it actually made a decent bit of sense in scene during that scene. I found that funny,
Yeah.
but the scenes in the trial don't really follow suit. A lot of the songs don't feel in line with classic musicals. They feel more like songs, and it's like the one with the Arthur and where Lee shoots him and like that sequence, like their duet just, and I guess part of it's like a stand-up routine, but I just didn't find a lot of the songs after the first act to be like as strong as the stuff earlier on.
I didn't really have a problem with the songs. I enjoyed them. There are some that I like more than others. As I said, the Joker, that is my favorite track. I just love that entire sequence. Him just hallucinating, as you said, retreating into himself, and I just think the
Yeah.
song itself is a banger. I think it's just really
Oh,
good.
I just nothing beat If My Friends Could See Me Now, and I
Yeah,
swear.
that song's also
I
great.
think people are saying what I said about the latter bits through and through and acting like the entire movie is Lady Gaga and that none of it hits like the musical peak. I love that song because it builds so perfectly. It has like three key like parts and all of them like build in like, her vocal inflection and obviously them like making it outside and almost climbing the fence. And I love the irony, like there's piano music is actually like the key instrument early on, and like she burned a piano earlier like to make it so that they could escape the scene.
Uh-huh.
I it's I had a big grin on my face during that scene. I'm like, dude, they're doing it. They're so doing what the trailers made it look like. But yeah, that nothing beat that scene for me. That was really good. And pretty much in line with what I was hoping the movie would be like.
Yeah, and then the movie isn't really that later on, but yeah.
No, no. Um, I don't know. We've covered most of it. Like, I really loved the Gary scene, and even if it doesn't feel that like built up to, I get why he kind of gives up being on the Joker after that, after he's confronted by him of all people, and the actor that plays Gary, like he knocked it out of the park.
He is great,
like
yeah.
For that one scene, for him coming back, really good stuff. But I don't know. It's a weird movie where I don't really know what the greater point is supposed to be other than pointlessness, which is what we were saying. It's so ironic that the biggest flaw of this movie is the ending, where it's like there are ways to do pointlessness well, and they kind of fucked up that. They couldn't make a pointless death work.
Yeah, there were at least 2 ways that if they had done it would have worked really well, which we talked about, Lee killing him and him suiciding by cop. Like, all of that could have worked better, but or the electric chair, obviously. But yeah, the ending is the most disappointing part of the movie for me. I didn't quite enjoy the rest, but I agree with you with a lot of criticisms. I don't think this movie's perfect. It's I think it's a worthy sequel, but it feels like it needed a few more drafts, like regardless of me enjoying it. So yeah.
Yeah. I honestly enjoyed it too, and like I said, I definitely need to see it again at least once, but there is stuff that works. I love the performances. The production values are all on point. I feel like a few scenes hit stride. It honestly almost works better in scenes. Like it's kind of like more than the sum of its parts. But man, the sum of its parts don't really make a great film, in my opinion. But still, that was what I said. Even like because I tweeted out about it. I put out that like. I put out before I watched it that I thought there was no like way the movie would be bad. Like, if this is a bad movie, it's like it's interesting. It's still worth it, and there's still something to talk about. Like this is so much better than the average bad movie nowadays.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, because that's what I find so funny about it being panned, like something like Suicide Squad. Like Suicide Squad is just incompetent and incoherent. Like, there's more on the meat, there's more meat on the bones of this movie than there is for the average bad movie, and that's why I would still recommend it, even though I wouldn't go as far as to call it a bad movie, because like I just think there's more merit on display than people are giving it credit for.
Yeah, I just outright think it's it's a pretty good movie. And
that's fair enough.
Yeah. I was kind of shocked that people hated this movie so much. I get the ending criticisms, but like, I don't know. Even though the ending isn't great, I still think it does like what the film was all like building up to. And anyway, it just didn't execute it in the way that would have been best. But yeah. Like I still like I saw the point of why they did what they did, like the way they got the actual Joker to kill him. I thought it was cringe, but I understood the point of what Todd Phillips was doing. So I don't know. I think it's a pretty good movie. It is not as good as the first one though, like not even close.
Yeah, part of that comes down to the simplicity of the first movie. Like, it's funny how this movie's like trying to like come up with like plot points. Like I said, that's another frustration I have, is that like so few. Arthur's a really passive character in this movie. It's unfortunate, but like things kind of happen to him rather than him making choices and things, because the plot is very much dictated by his own actions and choices in the first movie, and it's not really the same in this movie. And one of the things Jeremy Jahns pulled up, which is so true, is the guards, like, they are full out abusive and do insane shit to him, and they never get a comeuppance.
Yeah.
It's weird that, like, of all the people, I think
it was just like
kill,
classic, like Arkham stuff. I think that was just like comics. Like, see, this is what Arkham is like. I don't think it
Yeah,
had anything to do with like a larger point or having Arthur kill them. I think it was just like, yeah,
but
see, it's like
still,
the comics. It's Arkham.
it's like if there was anyone for him to kill at the
It would have
actual
been those
hospital, like
guards, yeah.
yeah, it would have made sense, but that just doesn't really happen. So it's like, okay, I guess they were there to be awful and to get away with it. It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
I think it kind of shows like, as we said, the pointlessness of the entire thing that Arthur did. That, you know, he was trying to fight against the bullies, but you know, there's still bullies. The system is still fucked, I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of grasping at straws. Yeah, there's not really any. I don't know. Yeah, they're there and they don't get any comeuppance or anything. It is a bit weird.
Yeah. It's interesting. I definitely think people are being too harsh on it. I get the criticisms, and it's definitely disappointing compared to the original movie, but it's still fairly worthwhile, I'd say, given that, like, and that was how I worded it as well in my original post, is like there's something to be frustrated over. Like I would rather be annoyed that a movie could have been better written and, like you said, just needed more drafts, than for a movie to like have a premise that doesn't even work at face value, or like there's just not much going on with the characters, and there's not even anything to be frustrated over. You're just like, that was just a bad movie.
Uh-huh.
Like this isn't like that. It's frustrating because you can see how the movie could have been strengthened and improved, and not a lot of bad movies are like that nowadays. So that's why you'll have me singing this movie's praises of all things, because everyone's just acting like it's
The worst
on the
thing
same
ever
level
made.
as something like
Yeah.
Suicide Squad. Yeah, and it's like, come on, man, be more reasonable than that.
Yeah. This movie did bomb as well in the box office. Was kind of insane.
Yep,
I
I
think
don't
it's coming
know.
out on
The
digital like
Madam,
at the end of the month, like less than a month after it came
yeah.
out in theaters.
Well,
Wow.
that's not exactly abnormal, unfortunately,
Well, for a
but
movie like
it's
this, it kind of is, right? Like you wouldn't expect like the Batman to come out on digital like a month after it came out.
yeah, it's especially. I mean, that they were clearly banking on this being like a huge win and giving them a bunch of money, because
The
I don't know
first
if it
one
is
was
just
like
going to
the
straight
highest
up bomb, but
grossing ever
yeah,
R-rated
for a
movie.
rated
So
R,
yeah,
it made over $1 billion, and they were clearly thinking that because they put in a lot more money into this movie. Because that was the other thing. The first movie had I think it was like 60 million. What was
50
it?
million, I think.
Yeah, 50 to 70 million. It's like, wow. And it made 1.079. That's like, that's huge. This one, 166.7. So it is not doing well. It will probably not make back its money. It's
Movies are
another
crazy.
doozy for Warner Brothers,
Yeah.
and they're I thought this might be their redemption. I honestly was like, you know what? Maybe this will be the turnaround where they make a movie that actually gets a return of its investment. It's like, oh no.
No.
So you're still just that infamous studio that makes movies that people don't like, and that fucking cancels the movies that and hides them for tax
Yeah.
write-offs. Son of a bitch.
The Batman
And even
2 is gonna
Christopher
make
Nolan's
money at least, I guess.
I I saw it on Twitter. I need to look up if it's true, but apparently Warner Brothers offered Christopher Nolan a 7-digit figure check to like entice him back to their studio, and he's still
Oh,
working with
yeah,
Universal
no,
for
he
his next
accepted the
movie.
check
So
and he's still working with Universal. It's hilarious.
yeah, it just he just took that 10 plus $1 million check and is like, yeah, I'm gonna stick to Universal.
Yeah.
So thanks for the money. They could be in serious trouble here,
They
man.
could.
It's crazy to think about, because I used to love Warner Brothers, but I don't know what their deal is nowadays. It's
Well, the thing is, I don't even
bad
think they're only
production
making bad
values.
movies. Like, Furiosa just came out. I thought it was a great movie, but it just did
Yeah,
not make its money back at all.
I guess a lot of it comes down to how they market their movies, but I don't know why Furiosa bombed. I'm sure there's people that make like that have videos online that like go
Yeah, I'm
into
sure someone
detail
has explained it. I just
and
find it fascinating because it's like a prequel to Fury Road about the character that everyone loved when they watched the movie.
well, and
Starring
you
one of the
can
biggest stars in the world, and it bombs. It's
well,
wild.
and you can never predict it because you know, like Blade Runner 2049 didn't do so well
But
either,
to
and
be
that was
fair,
the
neither
sequel
did the
to
original Blade Runner when it came out in
yeah,
theaters.
it's and this is the thing about any time a movie bombs, you can only speculate on like why it's bombing, and I think it's pretty clear in this movie. It's just that people didn't like
Didn't
it. It
like it,
wasn't
yeah.
like Furiosa, where because Furiosa might have been like a matter of like how it was marketed. It might have been that it was a supporting character. People had heard there's so many factors that you're like maybe this is why. Even though people on whole seem to like it, with this, it's just people aren't recommending it. People are saying like most reviews are saying don't watch this movie, which again I wish they didn't because I think this movie's worth more than that, but
Yeah,
it's just not getting recommended and it's just not vibing with most people. So
yeah. Well, with that, I think we're done with Joker for the day.
yep.
All right. Um, so Evan, I have a recommendation, but it depends on whether you can go to the movie theater to watch it this next week.
I think I have an idea.
Do you? Well, it is still Spooky Month, so I kind of have to. Smile 2 is the movie I want us to
Oh,
watch.
oh, oh! I thought you were thinking of The Substance.
Oh, The Substance is a movie I definitely want to watch too. But the thing with Smile is I thought the first movie was so interesting
Yeah,
because it is so
I haven't seen
disappointing. The ending of the first movie is so disappointing, but it was so close to being a good movie. And so I'm curious
yeah,
about the
I
second one
haven't.
because I've heard people say the second one is actually Kino. So Smile 2.
Interesting. I haven't seen the original because again, I've seen the ending. I know what happens, and that it's like,
They undermined the entire fucking point of the movie by having the monster show up again
yeah,
and kill her. Yeah, it's great.
or actually, people like the new one.
Yeah, I've seen people generally just say that the second one is pretty good, just like a really well
Okay.
made movie. And I kind of like the concept of the smile being shared to like a famous person, and obviously she's gonna end up killing herself in front of her entire audience, and so everyone's gonna be infected. That's like obvious, but
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a cool idea, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe they can do it
It,
better than they did the first movie. Maybe they just don't undermine the entire point of the movie by the end. That'll be cool.
yeah, the trailers did look more interesting and enticing than that because, like, at least it was like a celebrity and like people put on a smile when they're around celebrities and that kind of a thing. Like, there's a
I
little more
like
you
the
can do
scene
than
where
just some
she's
random
seeing
ass
like the
person.
children, the child with a
Yeah,
smile, and she's just giving her an autograph because she knows it's fake, but she's fucking terrified. I thought that the woman was like, "Oh, that's so cool." So yeah,
yeah, that was a good bookend for the trailer.
yeah. So I'm interested in that.
Okay,
The Substance is
Smile
another
2, let's
movie I
go.
want to watch too, though. That movie we could do an
Yeah.
episode too, but it's not out in theaters here in Brazil yet, so I don't know.
Ah,
I
damn,
think I
it
think it's
is
actually
where I
like
live.
out on digital, isn't it? Like I think it actually got a digital
Yeah,
release at the same time. If it did, then we can watch it too at some other week.
yeah, I might want to check it out while it's in theaters because I missed Kinds of Kindness. I watched it on digital after it came out. So, but I think that one will probably stay in theaters for longer because people really are vibing with the
Yeah.
substance. Like it's kind of they'll probably like have it stick around for longer than it would otherwise. But all right, Smile too.
Smile too, yeah. I subverted your expectations because you expected me to pick a good movie.
All right,
I
fair
think I'm
enough.
like the only person in the world who's kind of interested in Smile 2, just because I even made a video about the first movie, so I'm kind of like I'm invested to see if they can do something with it. Because I like I moments in the first movie. If you could watch the first movie before you watch the second one as well, it could be good to have like a discussion about both of them. But yeah, Smile 2.
Will do, Sky.
All right. Well, with that said, that's all, folks. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you indeed. Very interesting combo. I I hope
Yeah,
our descriptions were
the two
full.
least similar movies of all time talked about in the same episode. This is why you come for Sky Never to Sky Never in the Morning for. Um,
Oh, absolutely.
all right, well, we'll catch you next week, folks, with Smile 2.
Catch you next week.
Oh boy.